Welcome back to Hot Movies. Today, I'll recap a drama romance movie, 3 Meters Above the Sky. The movie begins with the sound of a flirtatious whistle of hacha to attract the attention of an upper-middle-class girl named Bobby. She doesn't want to interact with an unknown, reckless brat. Then, Hotch purposefully places his motorcycle in front of the window to grasp her hand. Bobby pulls her hand away from him and flashes him the middle finger. They happen to run into each other again later that night at a party. When Bobby's chin is touched this time, all he gets is juice splashed all over him. When Hache hears her suitors taunting, he knocks him to the ground and takes Bobby over his shoulder into the pool, dismissing her apologies and tumbling into the water with her. She hasn't seen such a terrible guy before and wishes to get out of the danger. However, because her clothes are soaked, exposing her naked body, Bobby is forced to go into the water once more. When her partner calls the cops, Hotch arrogantly walks away, leaving Bobby alone in the water. What she doesn't comprehend is that Hotch's vengeance is far from over. Her boyfriend boasted on the way back that it was all his idea to be alone with Bobby. Hotch and his team catch up with him and wreck the car as he is talking. Bobby's car is quickly pushed to the side of the road. Hotch instantly pins her boyfriend to the ground and needs him to pay the cost of contacting the cops. Bobby musters the confidence to climb on her friend's back after witnessing him being bullied. Her boyfriend, however, abandons her and flees. Bobby, who has been abandoned in the middle of nowhere, walks to the middle of the road in an attempt to hitchhike. The men in passing cars are all drawn to her stunning beauty, but they are eventually frightened away by Hotch. Bobby has no choice but to request a lift home from him. Hotch may appear cold and apathetic, but perhaps he's been expecting her to say it all along, and Bobby finally climbs the man's motorcycle. What she doesn't notice is Hotch's smile. They accelerated through the cool wind. Bobby seemed to feel safe in his embrace, and she was still buried in it when she arrived at her home. Her friend Katina had to travel to her boyfriend's motorcycle race in the evening on the following day, so Katina lied to her family and said she would stay at Bobby's place for the night. Katina's mother unexpectedly called in the evening to say she was going to fetch her up in person. Bobby dashed to the motorbike race to inform Katina that she needed to leave. What she didn't expect was to run across the man she despised once more. Hotch asked Bobby whether she wanted to ride on the back of a motorcycle and enjoy the excitement of speed. Bobby simply refused to speak with him. Then a lovely girl jumped on Hotch's motorcycle and stated Bobby was a coward. An enraged Bobby promptly mounted another motorcycle, but the cops stormed the arena midway through the race. Bobby, who had never seen anything like this before, was pinned to the ground by the police. She is a decent girl from a wealthy family who falls in love with a spoiled guy who flirts with her. When Hotch saw Bobby being forced to the ground by the cops, he got her on his motorcycle and took off the scene with Bobby. To avoid implicating her in the matter, Hotch instructed Bobby to hide, and then he rode his motorcycle to distract the cops. When Hotch returned to the spot, Bobby was nowhere to be found. Bobby got out of the dirt after a few shouts. After he saw her in such a condition, he laughed. Hotch finally took off his jacket and put it on her, much to her distress. The exceptionally cool wind of the night couldn't cool their hearts. That night, their love for each other was gradually igniting. Even her expression on Hotch was less repulsive than before. The photograph of the two of them fleeing together was soon published in the newspaper. Hotch didn't care. He became more daring, sneaking into Bobby's room and sticking the photo on the ceiling. Bobby sensed love when he looked at the photo of the two of them. They began dating soon after. Hotch saw the girl he loved at first sight in the midst of the commotion and walked closer to Bobby, who responded shyly. Bobby's mother soon discovers their relationship and hits her daughter hard since she would not allow her daughter to be with such a street brat. Alone in her room, Bobby sobs uncontrollably, yet one phone call from Hotch and all her misery would be gone in an instant. They meet the next day in front of the school when Bobby's teacher notices her missing class. When they got to the street on their motorcycles, Hotch noticed his mother seated in the car, and the man next to her was the one she was having an affair with. Hotch's rage was instantaneously sparked by the sight of this scene. By twisting the accelerator handle, he annoyed the man. At last, after his mother asked him, Hotch took Bobby, pressed the accelerator, and drove away. Still, his mother's disgusting actions continually haunts him, making Hotch more angrier. He continued along the twisting mountain road, ignoring Bobby's unrest. I'm not sure how long it took Hotch to stop. He went into a frenzy, slamming a garbage can on the side of the road until Bobby held him, and he came back to his senses. Bobby took Hotch to the beach after learning of his distress. They flew kites together and ate a lot of food. Hotch seemed to be comfortable only when he was with Bobby. Abruptly pointing to the white house in front of her, Bobby said that ever since she was a kid, she had always dreamed of owning a home with a view of the sea. These were clearly indelible remarks in Hotch's memory. The homeroom teacher called Bobby's mother to school the next day because she had missed yesterday's class. Bobby got suspended, and she had to pay a hefty price to retain her degree. With tears in her eyes, she called Hotch in the hopes of getting some consolation, but the call abruptly ended in the middle of their talks. Hotch burst through the window and entered. Hotch headed to her homeroom teacher that night after soothing Bobby down and asked that she stop harassing Bobby, or she might lose her dog forever. Bobby had no idea what Hotch had done for her. They were still in a delightful state of happiness. What she doesn't realize is that her father, who is standing above, has witnessed everything. He blindfolds the girl and drives her to the white villa on a motorcycle. Bobby smiles as she removes her scarf, since this is the house with the sea view she's been dreaming about. That was the night they exchanged souls, but happiness is always temporary. When the day Bobby in secret called Hotch to her home when her parents were out of the house. Suddenly, his friends barged in and wrecked her house. Bobby became enraged and drove them all, even Hotch. That night, Hotch called to apologize, but no one answered the phone. He couldn't help but leave a note for Bobby on her way to school, 3 meters above the sky. Bobby was so taken aback that she thought she was the happiest person on the planet. Hotch even made dinner for Bobby that night, with the help of his buddies. He waited for her for hours. Then when he called to check on her, he received some horrible news. It comes out that when Hotch's companions left her house that day, her mother's ring vanished. To assist in the recovery of the missing ring, an enraged Hotch tracks down the thief and knocks him up. He then returns the ring to Bobby. Bobby felt an acute discomfort in her heart as she saw Hotch's injured face. She stroked Hotch's tears away and begged him not to indulge in violence again. Hotch, on the other hand, made a clear pledge to Bobby, saying, "I will correct myself." One day, Bobby came to her homeroom teacher's office to tell her that she had won first place in the school. When Bobby arrived at the teacher's office to announce that she had won first place in the school, her gaze was drawn to the dog that Hotch had brought with him. Then she noticed the class teacher's worried reaction. Bobby discovers Hotch threatened the teacher in order to earn her first place. She soon located Hotch and questioned him. Although Hotch desired to be polite to her, Bobby did not believe that was what she desired. She eventually ended her relationship with Hotch. They didn't see each other for quite some time, but it was evident that each of them still loved the other. Bobby appeared to have matured significantly as a result of this painful experience. On the day of the graduation ball, Bobby, dressed in a white evening gown to attend the place, became overcome by the love of the gaze. She looked around and saw Hotch standing there. Bobby's eyes went bright as she saw the love of her life. They both leaned closer to each other and kissed as if the world was only to them. They danced in the middle of the floor. Her father was cheering from the sidelines. He remembered himself in them when they were younger. Bobby's admirer approached her after the dance with a glass of wine. He purposefully poured red wine on Bobby and continued to rub it on her breasts. In fact, Hotch was able to see through his terrible effort. He shoved the man aside and hit him in the face. Bobby is broken-hearted by the way he handles the problem, and she questions Hotch about why he always turns to violence. Hotch is about to speak when he hears bad news about his best friend has been in a racing accident. When they came, his best friend was dead on the ground, not breathing. He hits the motorcycle as if insane, explaining his extreme anguish with frenzied roars, no matter how hard Bobby attempts to stop him. Hotch resembled a wild beast who had gone insane. Bobby bursts out of the crowd in sobs. It was then that she recognized she didn't live in the same world as Hotch. Bobby is dissatisfied with Hotch. Perhaps his friend's death hasn't made him grasp the source of the problem. She's so fed up with this bloody, violent existence that she believes Hotch murdered his closest friend. But then Hotch went insane and resorted to extraordinary measures to end it all. His slap not only woke him up, but it also cost him the person he cared about the most in his life. Back at home, Bobby sobs his heart out and bids farewell to her youth. Hotch, on the other hand, is soothing his nerves with excessive exercise, as if tiredness is the only way for him to forget Bobby. Hotch gathered the courage to call Bobby one rainy night. He chanced to notice Bobby in a car with a man. Hotch understood at that moment that he had lost the girl for sure. Hotch had spent the night sitting in the rain. And the movie ends here. If you loved the video, then please leave a like and comment which movie should I recap next.